Hello and welcome to the next edition of SourcingTV, where I'm joined today by Alistair Niederer, who's head of EMEA at ttec. Alistair's recently joined ttec, but is a veteran of the industry and somebody I've known for years. So we're going to have a conversation today really about the future of customer experience management, with the backdrop of how much the industry has changed. It's totally turned on a pin as a result of, adapting to the pandemic. So really excited to have you join me today here, Alistair. So if you'd like to do just a brief intro to yourself and give us some of your background, that would be a great starting point.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. Thank you for having me, Kerry. Yes, I've been in the outsourcing business for some time. So I was originally in the back office BPO, outsource, finance and accounting sort of areas, and probably over a dozen years ago moved into the contact center front office combined with the back office. So I've had a lot of years of operating service, typically across the EMEA region, including South Africa and Europe, and spent some time also in Asia Pac. Developing and growing the business out there.
Excellent. So you've seen everything from every corner of the globe. So what have you seen happen since the pandemic? What do you think have been the main challenges? And this is a massive question, which could probably take a whole 20 minutes to answer, but we'll try and break it down. Is, what do you see has been the future of CXM and the opportunities now for the industry?
Yeah, it's like that old saying that says, if you think you can or you can't, you're always right. And what's occurred with the pandemic is that people wouldn't have believed that you could accelerate the use of automation, technology, movement of workforce from inflexible to flexible. You couldn't have believed that we could do and achieve so much in such a short space of time. And that's changed completely the dynamic of how you operate. But what it's done also is put a lot of pressure on business to say, we've got to be doing a lot better, a lot different. We've got to change our business. So, change management and change in organization is the biggest inhibitor to progress. It's not technology. It's the ability for a company to take on, if you like, speeded up risk.
Yeah, but if you look at the customer service industry, we're talking about organizations that have hundreds of thousands. I think ttec's got about 60,000 people itself. I mean, that's like turning an oil tanker. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I think that we've seen where people work change dramatically, and the completion of the work from home experience, if you like. I think that companies like ttec has always been very much an orchestrator of service. So we are very strong in the CX technology space. So we also implement all of the technology for businesses. So we're not just a provider of contact center outsourcing. We're also the providers of cloud-based solutions. We're providers with our partners, all of the technology, and we provide the consulting and the advisory services as a practitioner. So, I think the adaptation is really interesting. And we look at it in our environment here that says, moving to a hub and spoke model is interesting, because you've got to change your physical landscape dramatically, the way that you're operating. So, a big part of our work, whilst we are considering and working through how you change that physical infrastructure, most of the work is to help people rapidly remove cost from their business and implement technologies and automation, which has been really a nascent element in business, and also quite immature in a lot of businesses, where they haven't had the ability to change at the speed that they now need to change to remain competitive.
Yeah, so lots of organizations in our space always talk about people, process and technology. So let's break those down into those three areas. So people, obviously, paramount importance. It's been incredibly difficult for, the mental well-being of lots of people, specifically those people that are in the customer service industry, because they are typically younger people, I guess, not always. and used to being in a really, really buzzy environment, and then to suddenly find themselves forced into a working from home environment and the stress of security protocols. What's the situation? How have you managed mental well-being within the ttec employee base, and what is the appetite amongst your employees to actually go back into a bricks and mortar environment?
Yeah, it's a great question because people are people. We're the same. Where everybody has been impacted by this concept of being at home all the time. So the welfare of people is paramount. Our solutions aren't just about people, but when you look at what we're doing, it all goes back to the question of why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Is it appropriate that we need people to be handling these calls, which are very mundane? So, when I was running, even larger workforces of people, the fact that what made people the most distressed or annoyed about their work were doing things that appeared to be meaningless or pointless. The jobs that they were doing were so rudimentary, and they were getting beaten up all the time, and that didn't give them a good feeling at work. And that was before any of this came about. So what you're seeing is that if you understand what the customer is wanting, what channel they choose, and whether you need to have somebody involved in the equation, if you're answering that and delivering it in the right way, then the people that you employ need to be working for, they enrich themselves because they're enjoying what they're doing. They are feeling useful. They're feeling engaged. And on top of that, now you're saying that you can actually work where you want, when you want, under whatever contract you want. So where you work is really interesting. The surveys we've done in EMEA are showing us that most people would be looking towards 1 day a week in the office, maybe 2 across the board. So that's interesting, because then we look at a model that says we're probably saying 60% outsource at home, 40% bricks and mortar. And then people are also wanting to know that they can work around their lifestyle. That's been the big thing, that says you need to have that flexible employment model that allows you to say somebody want to work from 2 to 8 p.m. or somebody prefers to work from 6 a.m. through to 2 p.m. and they want to work 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week. So you've got to look at how people are employed, where they're employed, and then wrapping around all that is the welfare of people. And one thing that our industry is exceptionally good at is understanding and caring for people, because guess what? The bottom line is based around attrition and the cost of continually retraining people. And we're in an industry that does typically have high attrition. And what we're seeing now is that people are feeling happier in their work, so therefore they attrit less, therefore your cost of operation can go down. And if you couple that with the ability to implement those things that enable the human to do a better job, they're feeling enriched, and the total cost of ownership is going down.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting area about the increased demand for flexibility from individuals in the way that they want to work. So we're seeing a massive move towards open, we call it open talent, gig workers, whatever term you choose to use. How is ttec embracing the move to the gig economy?
Yeah, that's also a very good question, because the typical contact center outsourced business has been built around bricks and mortar, and they've been built around the concept of onshore, nearshore, offshore, right? So you're looking at a model there that's kind of interesting, but it's been very inflexible. Okay, so it's full-time employees working 9 to 5 or working the client hours, often working during the weekend when they don't want to. The shift patterns are difficult. So you'd have to say it was kind of not in the favor of the people who are working. What we're seeing now is that we work with partners and partner technologies that enable you to have people work. The workforce management is critical, so that you're providing the ability to run flexible workforces. A great example is where you might have somebody who works full-time based in the UK on a particular project, but because they need to earn a little bit extra money for a holiday or a vacation, or they need money for a different reason, they can go out and they can work for another part of the business in another location in a time zone that maybe suits. So, they may pick up some additional work for a couple of hours, 3-4 hours a week, where they're working for a US client. So you need the solutions and systems and billing and payroll, workforce management to be able to cater for that. And you need to listen to the gig suppliers, everything from those that are providing brand ambassadors as a service, who are paid by product, perhaps not even by money, to those that are providing a fully flexible type of work for these people.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard of that. So some workers are brand ambassadors being paid by product. That's a new one. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's where the best people to work with your customer are people who are your customers, who already understand and know the pluses and minuses and can answer the questions with absolute experience. And so they will work for, perhaps it's a mobile company. We've seen examples of that where you're paid for by minutes or handsets, or you're building credits for your service. So you're actually lowering some of your costs in the things that you are already spending money on. So it's an interesting concept, and it goes into that mix, everything from a full-time employee, bricks and mortar, if you like, to the other end where you've got companies supporting brand ambassadors for a brand who are doing it not for the cash, but they can equally be paid for that service by completed transaction. So, it can be money, it can be product, right the way through to a full-time employee position.
Wow, that's a bit of a minefield. So what technologies are required to enable a CX provider to be able to, one, find, attract, engage these sort of brand ambassadors, while simultaneously ensuring that you've got the right level of supply of service hours to ensure, the ultimate customer service is delivered to the corporate client?
It comes back to that question that says, what are you trying to achieve? What is your North Star? What is the level of customer service you want? How are you going to go about it? What channels are you going to use? What is the level of automation, and what is the impact of automation? You want to understand in the business what contacts should be eliminated, which ones should be promoted, which ones should be moved in terms of supported with more technology. So when you answer those questions, you find out what you need to do to support the customer, and you've got to have that very close relationship with your client, who knows what the customer wants, who has got a clear view of the voice of the customer, and then can answer that. So something like a brand ambassador would be advertised through the company, not through the normal outsourced channels, but we can facilitate that. So you go as a brand to your customers and offer them the ability to make money or make product credits based on providing services back to other peer customers.
Yeah, it's really exciting the way it's all changing. So one key area of change is the whole advent of contact center, call center as a service. So we're seeing, really huge brand names now making a play for this industry. So whether it's Microsoft or whether it's AWS, really big players coming on in. How's that going to change the landscape, and is that going to, knock some of the traditional service providers out? Is it going to open up the playing field for lots of smaller companies to come on in and be service providers by using customers' contact center as a service solutions? And maybe it's going to change the outsourcing landscape. Are clients going to deliver their own customer service more because these technology platforms are so easy to use and available now?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that there's a big move from outsourcing to orchestration, that you need to have the reason why you have people onshore, nearshore, offshore, where they are. So the use of humans or robots is an interesting way to understand what it is your customer would prefer in terms of the contact they are having for whatever it is they want to receive help for. Okay, so you've got to look at that and say, well, let's not start with, I need 1,000 FTEs to run my customer service. What I'm looking at is saying that, do I have the right heart and lungs in my contact center infrastructure to enable me to provide all of the flexible options that I want. And the advent of contact center as a service with people like AWS Connect is that you're enabling that in an outcome-based model, pay as you eat, pay as you go, where you're able to then say, I've got the infrastructure to listen to what the clients need and the customers want, and I've got the channels, I've got the processes, I've got the automation, I've got the robotic process automation, I've got all of these things, and I've also got access to huge amounts of data, the insights, the analytics. I'm listening to everything. So it's super critical to listen to the customer. The voice of customer is really important, and you're getting the voice of your customer every day. You don't have to go out and survey them. They're already telling you if you've got the tools to be able to listen to them correctly. So it's a solution that says humans or robots, you should work that from the customer angle in terms of understanding what the customer prefers, and you should be able to facilitate that at the other end by having a contact center as a service, so you're not encumbered by pouring lots of on-premises type concrete, if you like, into the business, which becomes a lot less flexible and requires a lot more of your internal resources, where you otherwise can rely on people who do this every day. So providing those contact center as a service solutions are something that you're better to outsource. So our outsourcing landscape, you can see, expands dramatically from just providing full-time employees to offer a service, basically do what you're given as a job, to offering the entire infrastructure from end to end under an outcome-based model.
Okay, do you want to talk a little bit more about outcome-based models? Because obviously that's been something that the industry's talked about for years, and from what I've seen, has never really been delivered or contracted for. So share your thoughts there, please.
Yeah, it's been a tricky one, because when you build a risk-reward model, which is really outcome-based models are all about being paid less or more for quality or performance. And it's always been very difficult, because you've got two parties involved, to actually gauge whether that's really your responsibility or the responsibility of the company. So it's hard, particularly when you come into a new situation. So you have to spend a period of time getting to know one another before you can build that outcome-based model. You can set it up, but the parameters need a little bit of experience to work out. But there's no doubt that when you couple an outcome-based model with a pay-as-you-go model, you are dramatically reducing the cost to serve, because you're being very efficient, because obviously you're on the ball to try and deliver what you want. You've got mechanisms in that contract to be able to change, and change is critical, that you have those change mechanisms built in, and that you are then able to deliver, but you're able to deliver things that I think that, everything we do is about removing risk for companies in the provision of the contact services. All right, so companies should be able to get on and run their business and do what is primary to what they do and how they support and make their customers loyal. But everything that sits in that really complicated framework behind it can be wrapped up into an outcome-based model, basically with a risk reward that says, if you're doing better than you have, or you've implemented the technology better, or you've brought in different technologies, then you're looking at reducing that bill that company is getting every month, and that's what they want. And that these days you would expect to reduce your cost of operation, your total cost of ownership. You should be reducing it, or looking to reduce it 30%, perhaps 30 to 40%.
Wow. Okay, so much change.
Yeah.
If you had a crystal ball, where do you think the CX industry will be in 5 years from now? So obviously we've seen loads of techs come on in. We've been impacted by technologies for years, whether it's voice recognition, automatic routing, and all of these sort of things. And obviously now contact center as a service, automation, chatbots, all of these technologies. How far is it, and then obviously the whole move to working from home, which none of us really ever expected. So obviously if you take all the constraints away, which obviously happened when we had the pandemic, and could create a new version of CX, what do you think, or what would your ideal version of it look like?
I think there's two sides to this coin. If you look at the side of the orchestrator, the technology provider, the systems integrator, we're pretty clear on what can be achieved. The big roadblock is what happens inside of the corporate, inside of the client, if they're able to understand or learn from those people precisely what can be achieved. So you look at it, IVR has been with us for so long and it's still a nightmare. You look at a lot of the companies you deal with day to day, their customer service, regardless of what might have happened with automation over the last year, is still not efficient. I don't think people would say, wow, service is so much better, right? The tools and the technology and the process exist. The headwind is companies' ability to say, you know what, we need to go out to the experts for this. Because if we continue to build silos inside of our own organization where we have all of those typical organizational challenges, then we're going to struggle. So the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that reach out for help with practitioners, people who've done it many times before across many industries. So if you're in the automotive industry, which is undergoing massive change with the implementation of EVs, you want to be working with somebody who's been working with retail for quite some time. So the typical automotive OEM won't have that capability inside their group. So why build it? Go to those people who understand how to orchestrate all those solutions to give a superb customer experience and do it far cheaper. So where I see things going, assuming companies understand that this is the way that they should be, that the new norm has changed, then you'll see that whoever's involved in this business are being enriched, they enjoy it, they like working there outside of the robotics and the technologies. But you have a very, very clear view of what your customer is wanting. You know, you're really listening to the demand from your customers of any help, and the human element is still huge and will remain huge, that people want to talk to people at the appropriate time. And so it's not as if we're going to get rid of the outsourcing of people and wherever they sit and however they're employed. It's still going to be a major factor in looking after your customer.
Okay, so my final question then is, our industry has always had a challenge to attract bright professionals into the industry because the way that the positions are often sort of perceived. You know, what would you say to some university students or college students at the moment that are looking at, you know, what career direction they wish to take? Why would you say enter this industry?
Yeah, I've got university graduates in my family, and as much as they didn't like to hear it, I said that this is an absolutely fantastic entry point into business, whatever element of business. So one is doing, behavioral economics, for example, which is understanding the mind of the customer, what makes them buy, what makes them angry, what makes them be loyal. Another one is very interested in insights and analytics. So we have an ability inside of this customer service, customer experience as a service, where we offer immense opportunity to address a huge number of those human-related, customer-related, analytics-related opportunities, and fast tracking, because we are a very, very swift-moving industry. So faster than anywhere else, you can get engaged in multiple areas of the business. And if you happen to start off as an agent, if you have that desire and if you go with what is your archetype of personality and what you think you want to achieve, it's most likely you can do that, whether it's going into finance, going into IT, going into more pure customer experience, going into analytics, insights. We need more and more people to help us with that, to understand what customers want, because if you understand and address it, then you're building your loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And added to that, when restrictions do finally lift, you can work anywhere around the world as well, and also work very much to your own to your own hours. So yeah, very exciting industry to enter into. So so anything else you'd like to add? Any points and tips and hints and advice you'd like to share?
No, I think it's one of those things where I have several thoughts, advice, but to me, I think you always should go talk to somebody who is an expert to help you. It's kind of like going to the doctor. They will listen to you. So, you've got to understand that in our industry, people go through that stage of discovery, design, implementation, management of service. So as an orchestrator of customer service, we know a lot more than you will know internally in your own business, because we work in so many geographies, so many verticals. My advice is go talk to the practitioners who've done it before, many times before, who've been down those dark alleys, who can stitch together the various elements, and don't rely on technology only. Remember, people, process, technology, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, customers are companies' most valued assets alongside the people that work within those companies, and getting that right is absolutely essential. And sadly, too many companies still get that so wrong. So let's hope we start seeing a step change there.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Alistair. And we look forward to seeing, how the industry plays out, but how everything plays out with ttec. So thank you.
Thank you, Kerry.